Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This guy right up here is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today's episode, we have another live call-in. These things are becoming amazing. The content that you guys are bringing forward from the Second Amendment community is incredible in passing the blessing of the Second Amendment along to the next generation. And if you want to be on the show just like this caller, there's a link in the description box down there for a Google form. Fill it out. We'll see if our schedules align, and we'd love to have you on to spark a conversation between Tim and I. But for today, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. And with that said, we're going to dive into our caller, Jason. Jason, thank you so much for calling in. What you got for us?
Absolutely. Thank you both for helping me really understand the Second Amendment. So I'm going to come at this from somebody who, a myopic politician or someone that really isn't aware of history. And let's phrase it like this. So the ultimate goal is to just get rid of the Second Amendment, right? It's old, it's antiquated, it's outdated. We can't fight a government with airplanes and nuclear bombs. What's the worst that could happen, right? So that's something I get asked a lot. Like, well, if their guns are all removed and then people can't kill each other with guns, what's really the worst thing that can happen? So that's something that I'd like to be able to discuss with folks in a meaningful way, because there is a reason why we have that, and it's not just something so basic as guns are violent.
Oh, absolutely. And Tim, I don't want to jump on this. Can I start this bad boy? Because I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, go for it.
So the simplest answer, when anyone goes down that road of what's the worst that could happen, you could literally answer with the 20th century. You could go.
It's called the killing fields. Google Pol Pot.
It's called good Lord. 100 million people died in the 20th century alone because of government interference in their citizens' lives. You've got China, you have Germany, you have Russia, you have all these different examples. I can't even go down all of them. Cuba is another one. You've got all of these examples where states have taken complete power in the utilization and authorization of force away from their people, and what quickly comes is the population becomes subservient to an all-powerful government because no one can stand up to it. Even Mao said, all power comes from the barrel of a gun. This is something that they know, and they use all sorts of flowery language. They use all sorts of utopian ideals, which is what we're kind of seeing in our culture today, which is one of the main reasons we need to fight so hard on this, because this is not new territory. These are old, recycled points. Yeah, sure, that happened before, and the 20th century wasn't good for us, but this time it'll be different because we're civilized. But those are literally the things that we hear day in and day out. And the things that are not brought up, Germany was one of the most civilized nations, one of the leading industrial democracies in Europe at the time, right before they fell in the 1930s. They were the power. They were the center. Everything was there. And they were civilized. Nothing bad could ever happen. World War II happened right after that. So in my personal opinion on this one, you've got 100 years of recent history where you can cite these things. This is the worst that can happen. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Tim.
Yeah, I would agree. When you combine gun control or gun confiscation with communism, you wind up with a bunch of dead people. And
oh my gosh,
that's going on right now in the world as we're recording this. China, a lot of the news doesn't come out because they have such a totalitarian grasp on even the media and the internet. But they're still executing prisoners, political dissidents. You just have to have the wrong ideology and you just get disappeared. You either wind up in a labor camp or a ditch, but you don't necessarily even get to pick that, whatever the outcome is. And that's what happens when you give government guns and take them away from the people, and our founders knew this. So yeah, the old guys in powdered wigs that fought the King of England so we could live free, that Second Amendment is even more relevant today than it was in the 1700s, because now these tyrannical governments have even more power. And the argument that Swalwell would use, well, what's your AR-15 going to do against a nuclear weapon? Well, first of all, Mr. Representative, threatening American citizens with nuclear annihilation isn't something I think that you should be spewing from your communist mouth. And secondly, how did that fare against our military going up a bunch of cave dwellers with rifles? They inflicted a lot of harm on us. Now, we did better than the Russians, but we never conquered Afghanistan because they had home court advantage, just like here. If somebody were to invade the United States, as I think it was Yamamoto famously said, there'll be a rifle behind every blade of grass. You can't invade us. and the government can't control us. We are purposely designed by our constitutional republic to be ungovernable. They govern by our consent. And when they lose our consent, we have to be able to put teeth into the response, which means if you're not going to relinquish power, if we ask you to, then we're going to take it back. And that's what the founders did. So what we're experiencing right now is oodles of communist-style propaganda. The news media is complacent in it. All politicians that are anti-gun are complacent in it. And what you're being fed, what the public is being fed, are talking points based on false stats that they're trying to invoke emotion to get you to surrender your rights willingly, because they know they can't do it forcibly, because we'll have something to say about that. But if they can get a majority of the people to vote them away, well, then they can walk away in relative peace, they think. And so that's what we're seeing right now. And that's what we're being subjected to, with the end goal of turning America into another communist society. And that's something that we should all push back against.
Yeah, no, that's great. I know time is limited, but it's I think it's this idea of utopia that it keeps being pushed, and especially by all these controlled societies. If you just give us enough control, then we can have utopia. You know, let us help you because you are incapable of helping yourself. And I think that the Second Amendment is being laid out as something that's antiquated. And really, it wasn't that long ago where we were fighting a Revolutionary War. Wasn't that long ago. And and it's really the only amendment that allows us to continue living free, because then you're equal. That's it. You're equal. So, I appreciate you guys answering the question. I think it's very important. And, I try and spread that to others. And the other thing I'll say is the easiest way to introduce other people into the shooting community is give them a silence 22, and they're as happy as can be. And then I got them.
Yep. Well, so I kind of want to tack one more thing on there, because it's such a great point. I mean, it's such a great point. The thing that not you individually, an individual, the thing that an individual has to understand here is no one is advocating for any type of violence against the United States government. That's not at all what was happening here. The entire point of the United States, when we were founded with the Second Amendment, with the Constitution, was to guarantee that the people were in control of the government, not the bureaucracies in control of the people. That's an incredibly important distinction, because right now you have the utopian ideal. You said it, you said it perfectly. There's a utopian ideal that it will be different this time. I think Tim and I talked about it offline prior to this filming, coincidentally. It will never work, because the very human nature that prevents it from working naturally will prevent it working in a forced manner. And what you start to see, and this is where it gets really interesting, because on this show, on the Second Legacy, we're not just saying the Second Amendment, we're also branching it out and tying it together with other points. When you look at the Second Amendment and their hatred of the Second Amendment, how they want to get rid of it, because it interferes with their ability to control through a utopia. But the only problem with that is, if you continue down that road of utopia, the needs of the collective start to override the needs of the individual, which is when you have the government start to suppress individual groups for the good of the group. That's what you've seen. That's the roadmap that it goes down. It's never a quick jump. It's always incremental, which is their game. The left, the progressives, the gun controllers, they all are one and the same. Communist, socialist, it's always incremental death by 1,000 cuts. And I think that's the important piece, because you can tie all of this together with historical examples of what happens when you go down this road, and then look at commonplace manipulation that's happening with politicians, what's happening with the media. There's so many different ways that you can tie this together and go, this doesn't even rhyme. This sounds like it's a song on repeat. That's because it is. And I think that's an incredibly powerful point. You don't have to say anything crazy. Just state what happened prior, which is probably why they're trying to rewrite history.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I think you guys nailed it. And hopefully other people will listen to this, and hopefully history will get taught and not just villainized. So I think you guys nailed it, and I truly appreciate it.
Jason, I want to leave you with this. For those of you that would present the argument that your guns have never done anything to protect American citizens from the government, that's false. And one example that they won't teach in school is called the Battle of Athens. That took place in 1946. This was, and Google it. I encourage everybody to check it out. But basically, in a nutshell, World War II veterans were not happy with the local government, which was cheating on elections. They had stolen the ballots, took them into the city hall, and they were hiding it and not letting the citizens see what the actual outcome of the ballot count was. They're going to do it in secrecy. Those, military veterans, mostly, there are other people involved as well, decided, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to get that ballot box out. And that's exactly what they did. So the Battle of Athens, check it out. It's an important piece of American history that, once again, is not taught in high school, at least in my experience. Jason, thank you for calling in, man. I really, really appreciate that. And anybody else that was like to join us on this live call-in session, please fill out the document down below in the video description, because we would love to have you on the show and let you ask those questions. It makes us think. We have a lot of fun, and I think that the audience enjoys it as well. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.